Hey, good evening. Welcome to A Foreigner in the Philippines. Well, as you can see by the title, it is an unusual subject for us to be looking at. Just to illustrate the point, when I came to America, when I went, as it would be now, to America, I went to America and I had a 6-year-old kid with me, my son. By mutual consent, by mutual agreement, he came with me. And in the course of him growing up, right, he actually developed a great love for American football. Now we don't call American football. For us it's a different kind of game, but we're in America now, and that's what it was. And he took a great interest in this. Now, it's not like he was a huge football type. When I see Americans come over here, I can tell an American from quite a distance away. They are a bigger people. There's no question about this, that Americans are bigger. When I used to come back from my travels abroad, came back from China after I'd been there for 6 weeks, and as soon as I got to an airport where it was where Americans were in transit, I immediately felt that I'd shrunk a foot, because I would stand next to these young Americans, and they are big guys. These are our kids, but boy, they are big. And my kid wasn't big, but he was determined to be in football. Now, for some strange reason, and really that gets to the crux of what this talk is about, is how we deal with bullies. And it's a big subject at the moment, because we're dealing with reports of people killing themselves because they are being bullied, and they're doing it's a very bad scene. So back to my kid. Forgive me, I have a tendency to wander backwards and forwards from one subject to another if it seems to be in a thread to me, which this does. He went, and in spite of one or two people, but mainly one, who for some strange reason best known to himself would come up to my son and say, "You're useless, why don't you give up? You'll never be any good. Give up. Go away. You can't do it." Now, my son took all this and did pretty much the British thing, the stiff upper lip, I guess you would say. And he waited. Now, they trained in the school team. He was in high school. And they trained, and they trained, and they trained. And then came the day, in case you don't know anything, in case you're like me and know very little about American football, comes the day when they actually do the full contact. They get padded up, and it's for real. Up to that point, they've been doing all that stuff that you may see them doing, jumping in and out of tires, and hitting these big pads that are supposed to represent hitting an opponent, someone else that's on the other team. And the coach knew all about what is being said and watches for what is going to happen. Now, here's the thing, is that there are many different ways of looking at someone who is consistently trying to put you down. A man called Carlos Castaneda, he wrote about his adventures and studies and learning experience with what he called, I think, not an American, a a guru who was a Mexican Indian, and the Mexican Indian was a wise man. And Carlos Castaneda went to him to study with him, and he became a student. When he complained about people like this kid who was putting my son down, his guru said, "These people are valuable to you. They make you stronger. And they make you stronger because they are what are called petty tyrants. They're tyrants, and as by definition of the word, they have some element of power over you. But in the case of the ones that are just being critical, they are petty tyrants. So, petty tyrants who seek to pull down those people who dare to rise above the petty tyrants' expectations. It's not about people in their own comfort zone. A lot of the time it's about whether you are disturbing someone else's comfort zone. Are they feeling comfortable or not about what you are doing? That brings me to another man. Well, I should finish this, as I said, back and forth. Watching my son get padded up, he looked over at him and said, "Well, Luke, so finally you're going to go on field padded up, so it's the real thing." And my son said to him, "Yes, a few scores to settle today." And true to an American coach, the coach said, "Yes, revenge is served cold." Americans are among the best in the world at making great quotes, great sayings, collateral damage, being economical with the truth. Revenge is served cold. All of these, I think, have their origins, or certainly have become owned by Americans. So it actually gets to that point where you need to address what is actually happening. What's the mechanism between you, say, for the want of a better word, a victim, and the bully? Now, there is a symbiotic relationship between the bully and the bullied. And this has been shown in all kinds of different psychological research to be true. And in the case of kids who get bullied and abused when they are children, they are likely, if they do not learn the lesson, they are likely to become the abuser. So the abused becomes the abuser. Why did they do that? Well, it is fairly obvious once you look at it. They do that because they saw it worked on them. So the idea of bullying somebody else is a little bit like finding the same kind of power that their bullies, those that bullied them, had over them. My own experience in school when I was just a kid, and I had the misfortune, or is it the fortune, to sit in a line of desks where the guy behind me was a member of a gang that was behind him and gave me a hard time continually, poking me, hitting, just giving me a hard time. And to me, I thought that he had the backing of his gang. What could I do against that? Well, eventually what will happen for anyone who is being bullied is that the idea of continuing to be bullied and say nothing is going to go on forever. And as soon as you realize that, if you're being bullied, as soon as you realize that, you realize that you got to stand up. And that's what I did. And I stood up to him. Now what happened is that his friends turned on him. Oh, Terence is, Flannery, as he said, isn't so scared of you anymore. So what are you going to do? Now, ironically, just at that moment, the teacher looked over and saw this kind of exchange going on, and he came over and he said, what's happening here? You're fighting? What's happening here? And the kid that had been leading me a life of misery said to the teacher, "It's not me, sir, it's him," pointing to me. And I got told off. So things always turn, and you become part of a different level of activity where you're not going to take the crap anymore, and whatever the price is to be paid, you're willing to pay it. I've seen this in there are very popular videos on YouTube which, as soon as the word bully goes into the title, the bully got owned. And you will find that there are tens of thousands, sometimes hundreds of thousands of views of these kinds of videos, where it often is staged. The person who is being bullied will be bullied and bullied, and more bullying and more bullying, and then suddenly, like the Incredible Hulk, he or she has had enough. There's a brilliant one of a young girl. She was in the canteen of the school and got bullied. All she wanted to do was read her book, and she was being bullied, and she sorted everybody out. And of course, because you've been manipulated into seeing her as a victim and saying, "Oh my God, why are they doing that to that poor girl?" And then the poor girl stands up, takes her hoodie off, and knocks the crap out of the opposition, no matter who turns up in the fight. And so you're glad to see that happen. I've seen it here. A bully that was giving us such a hard time, and eventually we had to stand up. And as soon as that happened, as I later heard about on somebody else who also stood up to him, he collapsed like a pack of cards, if that's a suitable metaphor. See, so in responding, finding your strength, finding your inner resources of strength, you actually benefit from the fact that you've been bullied. Ironic though it may seem, that's literally how it happens. And when people overcome these situations, when they serve up their revenge, I understand the Christian way of looking at it, of turn the other cheek, and that's very important on a karma basis. I'm not suggesting that this should be the thing. You shouldn't be going around like Dirty Harry or Clint Eastwood on every which way but loose. You shouldn't be doing that, but at the same time, sometimes some of these people need a bloody nose, and that's what stops the further evil being brought about and created. And we have it now on us, and we are dealing with it. I look around here, say names. Gradually what happens is that you store up the resources to be able to defend yourself. Be it that you're like the Karate Kid who did the wax on, wax off. Regardless of how you do it, regardless of whether you go off and train to be a boxer or a karate kid, it doesn't really matter how you do it, as long as it's something that's what makes sense to you. So I look at it, names, addresses, screenshots. You can, a little saying there, I think it might even be British, but it says you can run but you can't hide. And with the way that things are evolving and unfolding on YouTube right now, coming to the fore is the idea of harassment. Harassment, people suffering from bullying, people suffering from harassment, libel, slander, all of these things eventually will evolve as things become tighter regulated on YouTube. And for those who are in waiting, both the good and the bad, for those who are the abused and those who are the petty tyrants, things will develop. Just remember this, usually, most of the time, the bullying may be done in the name of the law. The bullying may be done in the name of right and wrong. The bullying is never about the law, and it's never about right and wrong, because most of the time when the idea of getting someone because they are just breaking the law, the way that they do that is usually in a way which breaks the law. So it's not about right and wrong. If you're being bullied, your time will come. The pendulum swings. There are a million sayings, and the Americans had a lot of them, but the Chinese are, a lot of the best sayings are attributed to the Chinese. I'm sure that even the Chinese weren't that clever all the time, but the thing about if you are a nail that is proud a little bit, the head is a little bit off the top of the floorboard, you'll be hammered down. Well, that's true, but then you get your chance. You get your chance. Thanks for looking in. I hope this helps. If you're suffering, your time will come. Bye for now.